Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to today's session all about what's new in Dynamics 365 CRM with the latest updates. I'm Jason Gumpert from msdynamicsworld.com. I'm really happy to be able to welcome Tad Thompson from Power Objects today to take us through this event. It's definitely a well-received one, and I know people are certainly eager to learn what's new. As we get started, I just want to open up a poll just to get so we can get a little better sense of who is on the line and what kind of systems you're interested in. So if you wouldn't mind just taking a moment to fill that out, we'll share those results in the next couple minutes here. If you have any questions today during the event, you can use the Q&A block you should see to the right. Well, really just near the polling block that you're using now, hopefully. Enter those questions at any time, and I know Tad will be making time at the end to take those. So without any further delay, Tad, I'm going to hand things off to you.
Great, thanks, Jason. Again, my name is Tad Thompson. I'm with Power Objects. I have been working with Dynamics since version 1, and I've had the opportunity over the last several years to get in on the previews and get my hands into the newest features, and which I'm really excited to show you a bunch of them today. So we'll first go over highlighting features. We'll talk about how things have come about, how you can get them, and then I will demo a bunch of this, not everything, but we'll demo a bunch of these new features. And then quickly at the end, we'll talk about what's next and take questions. So much of the enhancements have been around the user experience. There's been a refresh in the web client as well as what was formerly known as the interactive service client. We'll be talking about that. So the unified client interface, this is, there's kind of some different names around this, but primarily you'll see it as a hub. And what was formerly known as the Interactive Service Hub is now the Customer Service Hub. However, you can have any hub. You can create your own hub. You can add components, assets into existing hubs, modify them, and so forth. The new interface of the hubs are really much nicer looking. Nice new colors, really the same functionality. You still have that interactive capability where you click on something and everything else reflects that selection. However, a big change is we now have the left nav on way over on the left side. So for those of you that have been around for a while with Dynamics, you may recall the left nav. Well, it is back in a new form. It looks very much like the portal, the Office 365 portal, or has similar capabilities and features and feel. The web client, not to be ignored, has a bunch of new refresh features, which I think are really good. The coloring, which arguably has been rather has a lot of white space, sometimes difficult to find fields or find the values, click in the box easily. This has been improved. So we see borders around the containers of content. The spacing is a little bit better, a little more uniform. We have a little bit more theming. There is the ability now to do a subgrid theme. We still have the theming that we got a couple of versions ago. The text wrapping, we have that, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And better standardization around fonts. Just a general, I think, better look and feel, and I think a little easier to see content. So for themes, there's actually now 3 themes out of the box. There was the default one. Now we have a blue one and an orange one. Perhaps you'd use orange for your sandbox or something, so it's easy to tell. And then maybe blue, augment them as we have been doing. You can also clone, create new ones, and so forth. And then you'll publish one. Out of the box, you'll still just have one theme per your organization. subgrids. This is a nice enhancement, and I suspect this is a preview into what we'll be getting more and more of directly through the UI. So this is a subgrid. I look at the properties there, and I can give it a hex color code, and then that's what that subgrid header will display. So as you're looking at the form, might be easier to find the subgrids, or you can even have different colors for different entities and be consistent across the board. We can also we have an enhancement to the activity feed or timeline. Currently in the web client, it still more or less is the same. We have tabs. Then depending upon what you have enabled, so you might have posts, you might have the relationship assistant, activities, notes, OneNote, you may have KD articles, and so forth. The timeline in Hubs has been refreshed, so it's got a little bit of color in it, but we still, what we have there is it's a stream or a feed of all of those interactions as opposed to the multiple tabs that we have in the regular web client. Some configuration options that we have on the timeline now, though, is the ability to do a little bit more better sorting, to be specific about what shows. So again, that's coming in the web client, but we don't have that yet. So in the hub, though, you'll have a little bit better configuration. The LinkedIn Sales Navigator, there's another webinar this week by my colleague Marco Mato, and he'll go into great depth about this. But the LinkedIn Sales Navigator, I think this is a bit of a game changer for Dynamics in the ability to really drill into content that's available only in LinkedIn. LinkedIn has been a little bit disparate from other social networks as far as its listening capability, if you will. And so a big reason why Microsoft acquired them was to incorporate into tools such as Dynamics. And so we'll be able to embed within forms, be able to see the information about that organization from LinkedIn. Now, if any of you have been using Inside View, they're really complementary with an E, complementary that they're not really, this isn't really taking over Inside View, because Inside View has data from other data sources. This is really specifically around LinkedIn, which Inside View hadn't been able to get to because LinkedIn hadn't allowed access to their API. But it can be a quick and easy way to get other contacts within an organization with whom you might be interacting. Plus the ability to synchronize with your existing leads, counts, contacts, so you have an idea of who's in your system, who's not in your system, and also to be able to track your interactions, your in-mail, your messaging that you've had within LinkedIn. All right, so let's get into the updates within that might interest you as far as the interface. So formerly we had the Customer Service Hub, and that was a launch point from settings, for instance, or it had the URL of the navigation. We would have the configuration download. We don't have that anymore. Instead, what we see is among our apps, we will see our service hubs, or you might see a customer service web app. So introduced in 8.2 is the concept of apps, which was really significant in that it gave us multiple sitemaps and the ability to produce a subset of CRM entities, forms, views, etc., specifically for a group. And then we can specify by security role who can see that. And so now that's what we see as well here. So you might have a customer service focused web app, and then you might have the customer service hub, and we can create either. So all of our features that we had within the interactive service hub, we still have, but now it's nicely enhanced. There's better color, in my opinion. We have the ability to add in dashboards. We can specify defaults. Users can pin. They could pin a dashboard, pin a view, and we weren't able to do that prior in the Interactive Service Hub. The navigation, as I alluded to earlier, has the left nav now, similar to the Office 365 portal, and you access this as an app. So from the Dynamics 365 drop down there in the upper left of the navigation bar, we will see all of our apps. Among them will be the customer service hub or any other hub that we've connected to. And then you'll also see your most recently used records here as well, which is kind of nifty. I haven't figured out if there's an endpoint, how many records start to show. I've done several and they show, but I imagine they'll drop off at some point. Some of the other features within the hub interface, and again, not just Service Hub, but any hub, is the business process flow has now been refreshed, if you will, and it'll show a target for upcoming stages. We have the timings that we got in 8.2, so you can see how long you've been on any stage, which is a great enhancement. The timeline is there. You're able to see what's new, the posts and so forth as well, along with some filtering. And then also the business process flow, you can dock. So you might want to have a dock off to the right or to the left or something. And then you can build any hub. So you just click on apps in settings in the regular web client, and you'll see all of your apps that you currently have, maybe ones you're working on as well. And then you can create a new app from there. And you can decide whether it's going to be a hub or a web app. And I'll come back to apps in a little bit. We've got some other features that we're going to talk about there. Another enhancement that's actually not here yet is the email editing capability that we have. We have this pretty much in the knowledge management articles, the new knowledge management, but we haven't gotten it yet in the customer service hub or in any of the hubs. This had been advertised in the preview. In fact, you'll see that email as an activity is actually not yet in the hubs. So under the quick create of those, you will see activities or other activities such as appointments and tasks, but you will not yet see email, unfortunately. Some updates to the knowledge management content as well. So we have some a better editing capability. There's better support for to edit the HTML source of that article. We can preview on multiple devices. So as I was showing here in the screenshot, you can see it, how it would look on the desktop, how it would look on the tablet, how it would look on the mobile, which is kind of nice. And then also we can go into the global search and we can search the content there as well. This was in the multi-category search, but now it is also in the full global search, or relevance, as you'll sometimes hear it called. The mobile experience has some nice enhancements. You will get the mobile updated, your client that you have, if your org that you're connected to is enhanced or updated. So it's a little tough to get this and test with it unless you use a trial and then specify your app to that org, and then it will update. But there's some nice enhancements here. So it is built on the platform of the unified client. So I think it has a nicer look. We're able to switch forms. Much rejoicing and clapping there. We hadn't been able to do that. So our trick had been to optimize the first form that a mobile user would see in order to give them the best form, but now we can switch forms. Likewise, you could do that with some sort of custom work as well. A little bit easier to navigate around the tabs, a little bit easier to see the quick views and so forth. That quick views we didn't have in mobile client before, but now we do. You can also get a nice zoom view of where you are within your processes. The relevance search and categorized search have been updated here as well. Plus, you also have a little navigational element, kind of like the alphabet jump bar that helps you move about your list. You can also, oh, I forgot to mention, you could pinch to zoom. It's another one that most apps have, but this did not have. We have nice Office integration. We have that carousel experience, so where you're kind of swiping through a scroll bar, so to speak, of content, and then you can drill directly into there. We did get a little bit around image and taking pictures and tracking that in, but that's been enhanced as well as the location. All right, here's the big one. I probably should have had like a little animation here in my slides of applause, but we now have multi-select option sets. And to a certain extent, we've been doing this in a semi-unsupported fashion where we'd have some sort of manipulated control on the form that looked like an option set, and the user would check the boxes, and then we'd store it in a semicolon separated text field, which is what it is doing here. However, now we also have the ability within the views and within Advanced Find to see select operators that work for that. So if I have more than one entity, more than one selection in my multi-select, then I can do things such as it contains. So maybe you wanted to know, does it contain all of my, is it an exact match, or is it just any record that has any one of the values that I've picked? So pretty flexible there. And then the drop-down interface is pretty friendly and easy to use. There's a select all. You can look through it. You can see it in editable grids. And so you may then no longer need some scripting that we might have done or had business rules that were doing some additional stuff for us. Here's another one that maybe you didn't know this was a problem, but we haven't had this where text, if it was too long for the label, would just fade off to the right. This is actually a global setting. You don't have to use it, but it is on by default, at least as far as I've seen. In the system settings, you just go into administration, under the system settings, and it's right there on the general tab. And then if your text field is pretty long, it will wrap it for you pretty well. As you can see there in my, this is a super long field label to test wrap. It mostly works. So we're getting a lot of content there. And if your labels are longer than that, then maybe they really are too long. And then this is another kind of a buried one, and this is something that we were able to do in 2013 if we exported a fetch. So maybe we created an advanced find, and we downloaded the fetch, and we modified it with a new capability enhancement to fetch XML that we got in 2013, and then you brought it in as a stored view. Not terribly easy to do, but it would work. So what it gave us was records that were missing some child records, for instance, or had no child records, I should say. And so now, before, in my screenshot on the left there, if you chose, say, under accounts, and then you scrolled all the way down to the related records, such as regarding activities, and that was that. And you would see, you could drill in, you could say, well, give me activities that are overdue or something like that. So then that would be a view that's accounts with overdue activities, but we couldn't do one that said, give me accounts with no activities. Well, now we can. So you can go into an entity and drill down to the child records, and you'll see that there's now an operator there that says contains data or does not contain data. And once you select that, you can't pick conditions underneath, which makes sense because you wouldn't have any data to provide conditions. So that's pretty nifty. Take advantage of that one. Business process flow enhancements. So if I were in a classroom, I'd raise a hand who's been using Flow. I love Flow. It's a great new workflow capability throughout your environment, not specifically just within Dynamics Workflow. Is it replacing Dynamics Workflows? No. In fact, I would think of it as, can I do this with Dynamic Workflows? If so, do it. If I cannot, if there's some aspect that I cannot, then look to see if Flow can do it. And what you do is you'll connect it within your settings area and within your tenant. You can also connect Flow, by the way, to on-premise data sources too. So Flow is not just for online, although most of the services that you connect to with Flow are online services. You can also call actions directly within the business process flow. This is pretty cool. Actions came about in 2013, or was it 2013.1, somewhere in there, 6.0 or 6.1, we got actions and custom actions. So they are operations that we can add into our workflows. There are now quite a few out of the box. So things like add a user to team, close a quote. So there's these functions that are there that you can do in the system, but we haven't necessarily been able to execute them on demand per se from a workflow or from a business process flow. So this is pretty nifty. Again, we're getting more and more biting out of what has always been what's required a developer to do. So from our flows, you might then interact with other services, other databases. So maybe somebody puts a file in Dropbox, and from that you pull that up, you look up the customer, you create a case, you notify someone, you interact with maybe some other data source. So there's a lot that can be done here. We're up around 174 services available to interact with. And again, remember that if you can do it within Dynamics 365 workflows, do it there. But if you're going to be interacting with other databases, this is a fantastic feature. I won't go real deep into scheduling or field service, but there are some enhancements here, and there's more we can do too around building out our own views. So we've got some nice enhancements. I've just highlighted a couple here. You can track progress of the overall project or whichever area you are utilizing resource scheduling, and then we can see how we are doing overall. Substituting a resource, so if there's someone we need to add in or put in instead of someone that's there, we can specify that. Another feature is the ability to do some zooming. We've always had the ability to say, show me by week, month, day, so forth, but the ability to zoom in might be helpful if we're looking at a higher level when we want to drill in, drill out. So another area that has evolved, and I say evolved because if you've been spinning up trials at all in the past, year or two, you've noticed now that you're asked, do you want to deploy sales, do you want to deploy service or marketing or all of them or field service, and you can check a box, and or you can say all of these, and then you get everything. And so it was already becoming a little bit separated. But they've all been within the platform. But now what we have is that the applications are separated out actually as really separate solutions. And what that allows for is that different groups within the Microsoft development, they can enhance their content without necessarily interacting really at all with other areas. Now, of course, there's many things you might do that are really cross-functional, and uh, generally those things are still within the core, so things such as workflow. But if you are interacting with specific content that's always been within any one of those areas, then they might get enhanced separately from rather than the whole core, the whole CRM. And so the idea is that they're going to maintain some parity across all these applications. So some benefits, there's that gives them a separation of platform code versus the application code. So again, they can be independent from the overall movement. As an example, for instance, Power BI separated itself from Office because Excel and the whole Office family are enhanced every 2 or 3 years, but Power BI is enhancing every month. And so this allows for probably faster development or a faster release rather than waiting for the whole application to be updated. And then even within Microsoft, they are now working within solutions. So the Microsoft development teams will be working similar to how we work with solutions. And so from V8 to V7, a little bit of a change in how this is. So across our core, we still have the functionality that is common, but then you might have everything else is a little bit more solutionized or compartmentalized from each other. A little bit broken up, all in solutions. So now when you deploy Dynamics, you will see a lot of solutions. Rather than previous versions, you would just have CRM. That's it. Kind of hand in hand with solutions, and I mentioned this because this is a really nice enhancement, app modules. So in 8.2 we got this. So if you're not yet to 8.2, this is something to really look forward to. And it's kind of significant. We used to have just one sitemap to rule them all. But now we can essentially have different sitemaps for different groups. So you can take advantage of this probably now if you're up to version 8.2, and that's online or on premises. Whereas in 9.0 we have some nice enhancements. One of those is that you can spawn it from the solution. So I might have a solution with a bunch of entities in it. And before, what it would be is I create an app, and they're not necessarily mutually inclusive or exclusive. So I could create an app, and I could pull all of the assets that are in a specific solution, but they're not necessarily 100% tied together. So yes, I could have a solution or an app in a solution, but they wouldn't automatically work from each other. So I would create the app, and I would have to add in everything I needed. Now, if I start at the sitemap level, I could add in objects into the sitemap, and then they'll immediately become dependencies within my app, but not necessarily the reverse. But now we can do that. Another nice enhancement is as you're creating it, you can decide whether it's going to be a new web client app or a new unified interface app or a hub app. So like we have the customer service hub, the sales hub, project hub, you might create a hub for whichever reason. And it's mostly just, do you like the different interface? Do you want the interactive dashboards and so forth? And another feature is you can provide a welcome page. Maybe. What it is it'll be a page that you create, web resource, that provides some information for that user. There's a couple of little minor things. You can search within your canvas, so you can enter a keyword and it'll find whether there's a component that is available. One more thing I'll add on app modules, and I don't have it as a bullet point here because it's not really a new feature, but something that I think is a little under-advertised on app modules is that we've never had the ability before to say, well, I only want this system view or these system views to be available within the web client. So what we do is we'd create personal views, share them, but personal views are a little bit difficult to manage as an administrator doesn't necessarily really have access to them. So if a user leaves the company, you really might lose the ability to edit existing shared views, whereas now within the app modules, you can specify specific views. So another reason to be using them. Another new feature is virtual entities, and this is pretty cool. It could also be kind of a game changer for certain organizations. We do not yet have write capability or update capability, but we have read. So essentially what you do is you create an entity and you check a box that says this is a virtual entity, and you add in the fields and so forth, the attributes that you wish, and then you're going to connect it to some other data source, and then you're going to you can do retrieves, evaluate, do something within your database for that data, and really at runtime or as you need it. These entities will be organization-owned, so there's really no security involved. So again, as you create it, you check a box that says virtual entity, and then you will create fields as it makes sense, and then you'll even see it in views and so forth, and then you might interact with it and do something with that data. All right, so let's do a demo of a bunch of these features, and then I'll come back and I've got just a couple of wrap-up things to show. So here I am in the new web client, and I have both a preview, which was a conversion from over time, over the last few months. I also have a trial. I have found that they're not 100% exactly the same. So if you're ever wondering where you are within your CRM database, you can always click the settings wheel and go to About, and you'll see that I'm on 9.0. If you are most up to date within your Dynamics, you're probably 9.2.2. There'd be an update or roll-up of .2. And I have seen some slight different builds here. So as you spin up a trial, the next week and you spin up a trial, you might have slightly different features, or hopefully issues are resolved and so forth with each of those. Okay, so I'm in here. Let me give you just some navigation first. So when I click the drop-down next to Dynamics 365, I see all of the apps that I have currently set up or launched or deployed. We still have the get more apps, and you can search for other content. Now, keep in mind, not all of these might be available yet for 9.0. It's possible that it may not 100% work in 9.0 because it will be showing others, and these are third party. A lot of these are third parties. You will find some specific Microsoft ones in here, of course, and usually they have an icon that indicates that. So you still have that capability. So we're very much moving more and more into the app world, if you will. And then within the web client, I still have pretty similar interface. So if you're looking at just this far, you may say, well, don't really see anything different. And depending on how much I've enhanced in here, this is what I'll see. Now remember before I said we have the new app modules. So for instance, if I went to the one called customer service, then I would see just the assets and functional areas that were configured for service functionality. So this is the web client, not the interactive service hub yet. This is the web client. And so you can see there's not much here. There's service, there's setting, training. And so it's nicely pared down to what is just needed. And then even an end user who looks at this, who's been set up for service, they most likely won't see all of this. So they may only see the things that they have access to see. You'll notice there's also knowledge articles. That's the new knowledge articles. The original articles that were there forever, they are actually still within here, even though they were technically deprecated. You will still see them. So you might, in your design of your sitemap, make sure that any navigational links to those are removed. Also, this is a minor, but it took care of a little annoyance of mine, is if I click right on Dynamics 365 up there in the corner, it actually took me back to the home of the app that I'm on. Before it took you to the home page, this home page. So that was a minor but nice improvement. And I found that people, if they clicked on that, they might have gotten a little bit lost, because then they might see, well, okay, here's all my apps. Now what do I do? So so nice minor little thing. I'm going to go back to my full app module, give you a little bit more of a view around things here. So I have let's say I go into accounts, and the views will look a little bit different, and then when I drill into a record, you'll see some more differences there. This is where we can see the new kind of refresh. So you can note it, hopefully you can see on the webinar, there's a little bit of colorization around the header. There's a little bit more of a line-by-line kind of feel than we might have had before. I have not enabled editable subgrids on here, but if I had, then I would have that as an option as well. And of course, all my views, and I could pin, so that all the same. But let's drill into a record, say Coho Winery, and this page has gotten some nice enhancements. So the header has a little bit colored. You can see there's a little bit of distinction around all of the sections. So I think that's an improvement here. You can see where I've colorized the header. Is it always the right thing to do? Not necessarily, but as you can see, that's a pretty bold color. But perhaps you would might want to take advantage of that. The business process flows haven't really evolved too much here. I don't have one on there. In fact, here, let me jump to a opportunity. And the business process flows, you'll notice here, haven't really been enhanced terribly, with the exception is that you can now have a custom action called from them. You see you have the timing, which we got in 8.2. So you now see, such as this has been active for an hour here, and then overall it's been active for an hour. And then if I go on to another stage, then that one will become that timing, and we're still overall timing. I do have one example of the multi-select. I actually did on this particular database. I've created a multi-select on the account entity. You can see that it visualizes as a text box, comma separated. But if I select the drop down here, in fact, I can search. If I select the drop down, you can see which ones have been selected, and they're they're colorized a little bit too. And then let's say I check another one. Now that one's colored, and you can see it up here. Let's say I don't want to have one. I could either clear the checkbox, or I could hit the X there. It does the same thing, and then it's stored in that particular attribute as a text field. And then back in the views, I will see them, or in advanced find, I will see it as a selector. So here I see it here. If I choose the filter and hit the drop down, I have those selections. So that looks very Excel-esque. So as we've had multiple options like that, so I could say, well, I want to customize the filter and just show, certain ones, then that's what I would get. And then lastly, in the advanced find, I would see the ability to say, give me those that are that have a particular value, or maybe all values within there. So very quickly, I'll just go to Geo, I'll select Geo, and now my operators will be contains values, does not contain values, as opposed to purely the contains data, does not contain data. As long as I'm here in advanced find, let me show you that if I scroll all the way down to, say, I did activities before, let's say cases, as long as the relationship is customer. And so now you notice what's in this bar here is a new operator that wasn't there before. Contains data, does not contain data. And then it'll say I can't select, which makes sense because there's no data to choose from. So then this would give me, I'll take out that geo one there, and this would give me any cases, any accounts that are active that have no cases. And so then I might choose to interact with those customers in some way. All right, let's move on to the hub. So you'll notice if I hit the drop down here again, I'll see all of my hubs. Now, one thing that I wish we had that we don't have yet is I can't, for instance, right-click on here and say open in new tab. So what it tends to do is it'll take over the one I'm in, which is maybe fine. Certainly for end users, they may really only be working with those, but what you might do is open it again, your same URL in another browser, and then it comes up. So once I'm in here, once I've launched in here, you'll see that, whoops, I still have that. And now over here I have on the left nav all of my navigational elements for this particular hub that I'm in. And so if I hit the drop down under a particular entity, I can see the ones that I've accessed recently, cases and so forth, knowledge articles. So for instance, knowledge articles, here we've had some enhancements with the mostly around the content editor. And so we can do things such as preview the content in the other formats, and for other other formats such as tablet or mobile. You can get at the HTML that is behind your form, and then the designer as we've had it. That's basically what we had before. And then the business process flows, I have another one going here. Let me pop back to business process flows. In fact, I could open the same one. So here's one interested in our newer offerings. So the exact same record, if I look at it here I have an exposed opportunities. So good example, if you wanted to add opportunities somewhere in here, it's because I'm in the customer service hub, not the sales hub, that's why. Let's just quick change that. Let's go to the Sales Hub. And again, we don't have the configuration download like we had before. It goes in pretty fast. So yes, it may not be as brilliant as we wish, but it's pretty good. Okay, so now I can go into that exact same record, and I can see the difference in the in how the how the interface is for the business process flows between the two clients. This might be now that we have this available across the across the organization that we might choose to utilize this more. I think a lot of people have been using this just for knowledge articles. So you'll also see now I could pin a view. I didn't have that before, and I don't remember which one I was on. That's okay. I'll just pick one up here. And if we didn't have one started, I can always open one up. There we are. Okay, so we're in here. You can see it's been active for 35 days, and you see I've got the target showing on the next one. So if I click on that, I get the drop down. This is very similar to what we had in the Interactive Service Hub, and then the next stage is pretty bold and obvious, and so I can click and move along. I still have stage gating, still have all of the functionality that I had. Well, okay, I get an error. And then, let's see, I wanted to show you the dockable. This is now it's not cooperating. Well, shoot, I should get a option there to, let's try it here. I should get an option. Oh, nope, I wasn't in there. Okay, so we should have an option for docking our business process flow. Shoot, now this is failing on me. Okay, let's look at a couple of other elements here, and then we'll finish up with some questions. So if I go into solutions or to apps, I can see, if I go to settings and my apps, oh my goodness, no, that's not showing there. All right, okay. There we go, my apps. So that's actually a good point. This right here is a trial. The other one I was in was a preview, and there are some slight differences. So you might find as you spin up a trial that you maybe something there that shouldn't be there, or vice versa, and then spin up again in a couple weeks. It'll be ready. Keep in mind the trials you really don't have any control of. Your own database, your organization, you can choose when to go to it. Okay, here we go. So now you can see these are all of my apps, and I've got web ones, I've unified interface. I can create a new app, and when I do that, this gives me the ability to select whether it's going to be web or unified interface. Yes, I have to give it a name. You notice that the unique name will be my publisher prefix. So I think this is a good place to use an existing solution. So I could go into a solution and I could spawn it from there, and then it would use my own prefix and so forth. Once I'm in there, the designer is more or less the same, but otherwise, so for instance, if I go into one of the existing ones here, so I can manage the roles, open an app designer. The designer is more or less the same, other than there is now search capabilities. So you can search the canvas, and so I could look for maybe particular content that I'm not sure if it's there or not, and it would tell me, yes, you have it on these entities, these views, so forth. So that's pretty nice, especially as your applications maybe start to get a little bit big. It may be difficult to tell whether you have something there or not. But otherwise, that's pretty much the same, and then we can spawn it from a solution and so forth. All right, couple more slides, and then we will wrap up. So there are some deprecations. The Outlook client, probably not a lot of tears around that. Now, remember, deprecations, it doesn't mean they're gone. It just means that they will be gone some point. So the list component, this has been deprecated for a while. I lament this a little bit because not everything that you can do with the list component for SharePoint can you do in the server-side, but server-side's pretty good. It's so easy to set up. The mail merge Word add-in is also being deprecated, which makes sense because that required the Outlook. If you are using mail merge and haven't used the new document generation, you should move to that. That will be essentially replacing that, and it's better. Standard SLAs. So when SLAs first came about in 6.1, 2013, Service Pack 1, they had a lot of great features, and then they were enhanced. And they didn't necessarily enhance them. They created a new type called enhanced. And you can still create an SLA and choose standard or enhanced. Just go with enhanced. That gives you the ability to create more KPIs, more SLAs, link them to other entities. There's a bunch of entities you can link SLAs to. Contract entity and the contract lines. If you are still using contracts, you should seriously consider moving to entitlements. There is not a path necessarily, so you can't automatically say, make all my contracts entitlements, but you will need to look at moving those over. Announcements, I haven't seen those used in a really long time, but they're going away. Dialogue, so a couple of comments here. Now we have several features that kind of pick up dialogues. We don't exactly have a complete replacement yet, but we have the things such as the recommendations or suggestions that business process flows and business rules, which are pretty nice. And then we have the new dialog boxes now show up in solutions. In fact, let me really quick just show you that. So if I go into, I'll just jump to the default solution. You will now see dialog boxes as an option here, or a component type. And I've inquired about them, and I was told that they are on the roadmap to be customizable, but they're not yet. So think about all those little boxes that you see that you interact with, and they are not yet customizable. So if I click on that, even though these are listed as customizable, and I show all, the list goes to 107. So things like cancel a case. Well, maybe you want to have something happen. You want to interact with that. You want to add to that. One of our tricks before would be behind that button, change it so it calls a dialogue, and you do something with the dialogue. But so we don't have 100% replaced yet, but we're getting there. And so next thing you might do is spin up a trial, test, learn, try things out. They're pretty useful for learning, for training. They have really rich sample data. Plus, you can try out other features such as field service if you haven't looked at that, project service, Power BI, and so forth. And then you can watch for your update, and eventually you can update your database. The latest word I've seen is that you will have you'll have X amount of time, like we've had, and they probably won't really start getting pushed out till December is what I have seen. All right. Well, thank you for your time. I'm going to pull up questions here, if I can find them here. Q&A. Okay. Yes, Jason confirmed that, but okay, he is. And
so Tad, I think you probably want to start at the last question first.
Okay.
I was asking about V9.
Okay, so the V9 availability, you probably won't see this yet until December is the latest word that I have heard. But yes, you can check in updates. Frankly, I found a few bugs here and there. As you saw, I had one as I was interacting. So I wouldn't jump on it tomorrow. But keep watching, and sometime in the next couple of months. The command buttons and web resource in Unified, can you customize? Can you put in custom command bars and web resources? Web resources, yes. Custom command bars, buttons, not yet. But web resources and iframes are now supported in the interactive, or in the in the service hubs, the United interface. Okay, somebody else has commented, yes, the update won't be available until December, and that's what I'd heard as well.
Tad, there's another question that I don't know if you saw came in through the chat, just noting that when I tried out multi-select fields, I put two multi-select fields in the same one column section, and the drop-down of the above field overlapped the field below it.
Yes. Yeah, I found that as well. So my kludgy workaround was to perhaps put them side by side. And so you might need to do a little bit of clever modification. But yes, I have noticed that as well. I've also found in general sometimes navigating you click on a box and some of the lookups sometimes they don't feel exactly the same, so I think there's a certain amount of just getting used to, and or it could be just that behavior hasn't been completely smoothed out.
So Tad, I don't know if you saw the poll results, but about a quarter of the people on the call today are on premises. Do you have any guidance for them?
As of this time, for the most part, all of this is online only. There are some things that are available through apps. So for instance, something I didn't mention was the organization insights. So there are some, which is, well, okay, never mind, that's an online feature only. There are some things that you can get through apps, but for the most part, this is an online update only. However, they've always been, a few months later, they will provide them for on-premise as well. LinkedIn integration is an app that you would grab, and then there is a little bit of licensing. So you would have an admin license and then reading licenses. There's a really good there's some good PDFs, white papers available that go through that LinkedIn integration right from the app page. So if you do the Get apps from the interface and look for LinkedIn. Look for LinkedIn. There's some good white papers there. Any other questions?
There's this one about microservices architecture.
I'm sorry. The what architecture?
Microservices.
Not really involved with this microservices. I'm not exactly sure. I might need clarification on what they're regarding that.
Yeah. So John, if you can, if you want to clarify on that one, maybe we can still get to it.
Reworked web client UI only affect front end. Found bugs when working with calculated fields and roll-up fields. So is what you might be asking about is using calculated fields and roll-up fields in either client. They should still continue to work as they have in the web client, and you can include them in a interactive client. I had not found issues with that, but I'll make a note of that and try that out. If you do find bugs, you can submit them to Connect or submit them to, I forget the URL, but if you just search for ideas, you can submit bugs, submit questions, and ideas for new features. I think it's Dynamics idea. If you search for Dynamics ideas, you'll come to a page where you can add that content.
All right. Well, I'm not seeing any other questions at this time. I want to remind folks, if you have any feedback, please look for the survey that pops up just after we close out here. And we always appreciate it from our side, and I know our speakers do as well, to let us know what you thought of today's event. A few of you have already shared a few nice pieces of feedback in the chat for us, and that's really helpful as well. So, Tad, I think we are ready to wrap up here with the top of the hour, and you've been able to answer just about all the questions. There's one other on enabling flow. Can you say anything about how you enable flow in CRM?
Yes, so you'll find it in settings. You'll see Microsoft Flows here, and this will show you the list of flows. But if you go into administration and I think I can walk right to it. And system settings, it is in here. Sometimes they move things around. They had it in one spot, and then they might have moved it.
There it is.
Yes. No, show flows. There's a spot where you connected. Shoot, now I'm not finding it. It had been on the, originally it was on the general tab, but then they moved it. And it may differ from a trial versus a preview. Okay. Shoot, I'm failing on answering this one properly. It's in here somewhere. And I think it is enabled by default, and then the first time you try to use it, it will ask you to connect. And then you have to specify how you're connecting to it. So that it may have been streamlined to just that. I hadn't tried that in a few weeks.
We have one more question here asking, are you able to create Word documents like templates in bulk, like you can with mail merge, since mail merge feature will be removed?
Yeah, not as of yet. So that is one of the things that you can't do with the word generation that you could do with mail merge, and they won't get rid of mail merge until you can do everything that mail merge could do, plus all of the new capability. But also the roadmap is that there'll be a little bit of a trickle of new features too. So there will be often one month a feature is enhanced that is very much standalone as far as an enhancement. And so like, for instance, right now, the app for Outlook is technically in preview. So if you go into your previews, you'll see the Mail app preview. It's not quite ready yet. And obviously, if they're deprecating the Outlook client, we need to have this. And it's been there for in 2016, but we pardon me, but it is not quite yet available. So you will suddenly, I would say, is watch the Microsoft team blog for updates and subscribe to that, and you will get some new information, or watch our blog or any of the other Dynamics World. Also, we'll talk about new features too.
All right. Well, Tad, thanks again, and I think we'll wrap it up there.
Okay.
We have recorded today's event. We will be reaching out to all of you who registered for that. So yeah, thanks for your attention today, and that concludes today's event. Thanks, Tad.
All right. Thank you.